Stealing focus.
Bye bye life.
Bye bye happiness.
Hello loneliness. I think I'm gonna die.
Bye bye love.
Well, this was it. This was the final episode of Fosse, Verdon.
Mm-hmm, we got here.
Because where are you gonna go after this? Because it ends with him dying. Spoiler.
Can't rewrite history,
Spoiler
folks.
alert. Yeah. But this episode had a lot of really, some really great stuff in it.
Yeah.
This episode was the first episode this season that wasn't named after a song from a Fosse show. This episode was entitled Providence, which is Nicole's middle name. So Nicole was a big focal point of this episode.
Yeah, there was a lot of Nicole.
There's a lot of Nicole. They started the episode working on all that jazz. Mm-hmm. And they did a great scene where Nicole comes home and Bob's like, let's work on some choreography for Mr. Bojangles. Because he was doing this show called Dancin' by Bob Fosse at the time, which was like almost an entirely dance show. And it was insane. Like it was off the charts difficult, like this crazy show. And so he did this really famous Mr. Bojangles dance in it. And so it's this really cool scene because Nicole was a ballerina or wanted to be a ballerina. So, and Bobby didn't have the ballet technique. Nope. So it's really cool. He's having this conversation with her.
And they melded it together.
And they're working on stuff. And it was so funny while I was watching it because all that jazz has really been in my head because I watched it before watching the series. And he has that line where he's like, do a head roll. And I was like, oh shit, that's from all that jazz. That's from the scene where he's dancing with the daughter. Okay. Yep. So I was like, okay, we're setting this up. And then they go to film all that jazz. And who's playing Roy Scheider?
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's one of the producers. And I didn't realize it was him.
No, but oddly enough, he really does look like him.
He really does look like Roy Scheider. So they're filming all that jazz, and Lin-Manuel Miranda is Roy Scheider, and it was really great. And then, let's see, they make Anne Reinking basically audition for herself.
It really pissed me off.
That was yet another scene where it's like Bobby's being brutal for no reason and lording over his power over a woman.
And not only did she have to audition to play herself, but he put her through the ringer in that audition. I mean, he kept having her repeat herself like, nope, that's not it. Got to do it again. Got to do it again. And so she's repeating this awful memory of her actual life over and over again in front of the person who she had that moment with.
Yeah. And then she gets it because she finally tells him off and he's like, there, see, you did it. And it's like, fuck you, man. But it was pretty great. I do want to point out that the intro for this week was you better stop, you better change your way of living, that song and all that jazz that Anne Reinking does where she just looks amazing. You better stop, you better change, that whole thing. So he did not change his ways.
No, he did not.
Yeah, they started the episode with him and Patty Chayefsky in like Central Park, and Patty is telling him like how he should write all that jazz. And Bob's like, oh, the guy's named Joe. It's not me. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay, his name's Joe. And he says that you should wrap up the story so that he ends up with the wife that he broke up with, Gwen. He's like, let's call her Gwen. And then Bob's like, but that's not what happened. He's like, well, you're not asking me for real life. You're asking me like,
what should happen.
What would be a good story, a satisfying ending. And speaking of Patty Chayefsky.
We get the funeral.
And boy, yeah, that was sad.
It was super sad.
Because, again, that's another real moment. In the last episode, they kind of foreshadowed it where they're kind of talking shit to each other. And then Patty's like, if you die first, I'm going to do a long monologue at your funeral. And Bob's like, well, I'm going to do a tap dance at yours. And so Patty died first. And Bob Fosse did do a little dance at his funeral. And, I got to say, this... For as long as Sam Rockwell has been in this series, which is from the beginning because he's one of the leads, This was the first episode where I saw his Fossiness in his dancing.
Yeah, we haven't had, I mean, we've had some Sam
He's
Rockwell
danced.
Fosse dancing, but it was there was much more in this one. I mean, you had the Mr. Bojangles number.
Right, embodied him more.
Absolutely.
And that dance at the funeral, how it was all very hunched shoulder.
It was not like a typical like jazz tap number
Yeah, it was
that he did on the
very
grave. It was
Fosse.
very Fosse.
And I think I want to give Sam Rockwell that credit because, yeah, obviously he's an amazing actor, but we forget that, like, how much he dances in, like, all of his movies. Also,
true.
he's always dancing in his movies.
Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's really, really, really good at this. Another thing they kind of touch on really quick, which I do want to point out, is that when he's working on the choreography with Nicole, she's like, I thought Richard Dreyfuss was going to play you. And that did happen. I might have touched on it in a previous
I feel
vlog.
like you did.
Yeah, but if you need a reminder, Richard Dreyfuss was supposed to play Joe Gideon, a.k.a. Bob Fosse, and all that jazz. And then Dreyfuss was like, I don't know, I'm not really connecting to it.
Yeah.
So then, you know, they were pals because they did Jaws. And so then he's like, I don't know, maybe you'll like it, Roy. And then Roy fell in love with it.
He's
and
so great.
Oh my God. And not only did he fall in love with it, like he was obsessed with Bob. They became really good friends and he was like studying him all the time. And so that's why I think it was pretty cool that Lin-Manuel Miranda's like, yeah, I want to do this.
Plus, he was doing that Lin-Manuel Miranda thing where he's just smiling and giddy the whole time, and it's like you just want to be whatever Lin-Manuel Miranda's looking at.
Oh, I know. So they do the whole, the final sequence from All That Jazz, which is the Bye Bye Life number, which is one of my favorite things Bob Fosse's ever done. Maybe one of my favorite things put on film. It's so good. It's basically his character at the end of his life saying goodbye to everyone. It has this really creepy feel, and everyone he knows and loves is in the audience, and Ben Vereen is there and they're singing. And so when they were filming it, there was a moment where Roy Scheider was like, oh, Bob, you should go out and play yourself and go say goodbye to everyone in the audience, which really did happen, which had to be incredibly surreal.
I'm sure.
Oh my God. But so we've been talking for weeks about how they're going to get Sweet Charity
And they did.
into it.
They
And
absolutely did.
So they focused on the 86 revival.
Yes, the tour, right?
Yeah. It started in LA and then it made its way to Broadway. And yeah, it's kind of exactly what happened. Gwen was hired to help out, and then she calls Bob and she's like, this director is the worst, come on out here. And then the director was fired and all of a sudden Bob Fosse's in there. And Debbie Allen was playing Charity, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Right before Fosse Verdon, Debbie Allen posted this video of her and Gwen Verdon on Fame dancing together, and it's like
Incredible.
it's incredible. And so they had this moment where Bob is trying to teach, you know, he's directing Debbie, and then he's like, Gwen, show her the choreography. And this was a really neat, another Michelle is the best actor in the world sequence, but also her just being Gwen Verdon. So she did a little If My Friends Could See Me Now. Beautiful framing, and like her right there in the middle of the frame with those house seats there, and you know,
perfect.
stepping into the spotlight and doing those little Fosse moves. Oh my God, it was so good. I do want to backtrack actually. So in Bye Bye Life, one of the other things they did was when they were doing that sequence, they were juxtaposing it with Nicole.
Oh yes, it was when she was drinking and taking the pills,
so
right?
This was the episode where you really see how, you know, you've got to be carefully taught. You know, you learn from what mom and dad do. And
she almost fell off a roof at one point.
oh my God, she was out drinking with her friends, and like, you know, she took one of her dad's like speed pills
Or Quaaludes or some shit.
Yeah, and he came home and he's like, you want to act like an adult? I'm gonna treat you like an adult, and just kind of leaves her there to go fuck some girl in the bedroom. And it's like, well, shit. And it's true, Nicole's one of the co-executive producers, so she was very involved, obviously, which is great. But it really kind of showed how much she was influenced by all that shit, and how her parents just kind of were like, you know, she'll be home by midnight.
Exactly.
Oh, poor Ron.
He finally had it in this episode.
Ron finally. Well, you know, this is another one where you really get to see like how Gwen and Bob are just two sides of the same coin, because they're both.
They're soulmates.
yeah, and they were so similar, and the way she would kind of twist stuff, just like he would twist stuff with their partners and manipulate. And did I say that? I don't know. Whatever. Like, it just was, I don't know. It was really interesting and cool. And I think Ron probably came out okay.
I'm sure. I mean, she said that he was on his second kid at one point.
Oh yeah, and she's like, he had a couple lines on his show. It was very nice. She was like, I'm very proud of him.
But I mean, he definitely had it, and bless his heart, like, he put up with being second fiddle.
Oh my God, he was
so long.
He had a great scene. He's like, I'm tired of being in a 3-way with you and Bob Fosse.
Yeah.
And fair, like, the two of them never really were able to untangle. I mean, they were married till he died. Oh, it was fun. There was this moment where Gwen's at a charity and she sings a Little Brains, a Little Talent. When you gotta know. That was fun.
It was cute.
Yeah, very cute. And then Bob Fosse died.
Oh, and it was so hard to see. We knew it was going to happen, obviously.
You know it was going to happen.
But right in front of the theater.
Yeah, so it's crazy. It's crazy that he died with her there, basically in her arms. Yeah, going to the theater.
To see Charity.
To see Charity. It's something like opening night, I think, or preview or something like that. They're walking there. He was 60.
Like, don't worry, Bobby. They'll hold the curtain for us when this is happening.
Michelle was so good. She's so great. She gets that, like, Gwen chatterbox thing. Like, as long as I keep talking, then everything's going to be fine.
Absolutely.
That thing I loved. And it's what happened. He died with the woman who was his soulmate, you know? It's crazy. And then she died in 2000. You know, she lived a pretty long, good life.
Yeah, moved in with Nicole. And
And then they...
months later, bit the big one.
Yeah, and then they do mention that this was an interesting thing to end it on, but they end it going, their work was put together in a review called Fosse. Which I saw. I saw it in New York. The first time I ever went to New York, it was like the first Broadway musical I ever saw on Broadway was Fosse starring Ben Vereen. And it was fantastic. It was amazing. But it was weird. It was weird because it was like, oh, Fosse, okay.
Yeah?
I mean, Fosse was great. But it was like not the revival of Chicago.
No.
I don't know. But I guess Gwen wasn't... I guess that makes sense because Gwen wasn't really... Anne's thing was Chicago. I don't know. I guess Nicole was like, let's keep it Fosse Verdon, Fosse Verdon.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting. It was a really sweet, touching episode, really poignant, kind of wrapped everything up. I don't know what else they would have done. It's not like a fun episode.
I mean, you can't change history. This is, we knew that he died. Mm-hmm. It's just a dramatic retelling of what happened, basically.
Yeah. Someone on the comments on YouTube, like I just saw today, was like, Gwen basically drove him to his heart attack.
No.
And I said, oh yeah, that and the pills, the philandering, the alcoholism.
Yeah, no, she did not push him to have a heart attack.
I was like, yeah, right. Like,
I mean, stress does cause some issues
and
there.
They were definitely a toxic couple, but
yes,
that man took horrible care of himself.
A person downers will definitely
horrible
do it.
care. So it doesn't help. No. So yeah, it's gonna leave a little void in our musical theater.
What are we gonna do every Tuesday, Emily?
Well, I saw a thing on Twitter of people asking what kind of musical theater couple would be a good series next, and so I had two.
Okay.
Sondheim and Hal Prince.
Oh, yeah.
Because that has some high highs, but then it has a huge low when they break up. I also thought it would be fun to do Betty Comden and Adolph Green because they were a very platonic, they were a lyric writing team, and they weren't a couple. They just were like a couple of kids who teamed up and wrote stuff, and I think it would be fun to see that. I don't know who else. Do you have any ideas?
Not really.
Who are some other
I mean, you could just do Sondheim and fucking Weber.
They're not a team.
No, but they're enemies. It would be like Betty and Joan.
I don't think they ever
But you could make it that way. No one needs to know.
Rivals.
But you could make it that way. I'm just trying to make it a little interesting.
maybe Cameron McIntosh and Angela
There you go.
Angela Weber and Sarah Brightman.
Yes. Oh my God, because it's an actual couple.
Oh my God, give me that. Give me that, because
FX, if you are listening or watching this,
it will be so, like, because they're both so creepy.
you get crazy pants on both sides.
Yeah.
So much drama.
He'll be like, check her out. She'll be like,
Oh.
hello.
And then you can have all the cameos from Michael Crawford and like, it'd be,
My God. That
that's
whole
what I
gross
want.
time period.
I want it. I'm here for it. FX, make it happen.
Yeah. There's got to be more we can mine here. I mean, Rodgers and Hammerstein probably.
Oh, there's a lot of drama there too. But no, now that you've said Brightman and Weber, that's what I want. That's what we're getting.
Fosse, Verdon, Weber, Brightman.
Right.
The same image, like, except it's him looking like this.
Right, and her looking like...
And on that note, well, so what are our overall thoughts?
I
on
loved
Fosse,
it.
Verdon?
I loved it so much.
I enjoyed it very much. It was really fun to talk about it after every episode. I love every excuse to talk about musical theater history and fangirl stuff and just kind of blab about it. And so this gave me an excuse every week to do that. And I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
So we hope we were helpful. If you like this kind of stuff, let us know. I'm sure there's more vlogs we could do on a bunch of stuff.
We'll talk about whatever.
And Lin-Manuel Miranda, get going on Weber Brightman.
Right, make it happen, Lynn.
I'm just saying. All right, so.
Well, thank you.
And all that
That jazz.
That jazz.